Thank you for tuning in to the Panda Bear Magic Podcast. A small reminder, please reach out to a loved one because you never know what someone is going through. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Panda Bear Magic Podcast. Today, I have an intuitive reader from the Portland, Oregon area, Mr. Robert Zakian. Thank you for tuning in today. And how are you doing today, Robert? Wonderful.
Yeah. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for deciding to join us today. Yeah. I feel like you have a lot of good stuff that can give some insight to people. And so I wanted to bring you on today. Just can you give me a little bit about your background? I know intuitive reader, sometimes people don't really know what that means, but maybe a little bit about yourself and how you got into that.
Well, I was brought up Christian. And
where were you raised?
New York. You can tell by that deep drawl. So being brought up Christian, I found that Christianity in itself did not give me the answers that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. So I started searching and tried TM, transcendental meditation, Buddhism, Hinduism, things of that nature. And then I was living in Greenwich Village in New York at that time. Mm-hmm. And one day I was walking down the street and somebody handed me a newspaper and this actual photo of Mayor Baba showed up. Mm-hmm. And I said, all right, I'm going to go check this guy out. And I went there and just had uncontrollable laughter. I was home.
Now, was he at the location where you went to, or was it the group that follows him?
It was the group that followed him. He died in 1969. I started following him in 1970.
Oh, wow, right after.
So after that time, I had out-of-body experiences and seeing him, which also led me to India and other journeys with a shaman of Native American tradition and another shaman. And so it's been a journey.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about his teachings. What kind of stuff did you, it's kind of like a guru to you.
You know, that's interesting because that's what we call the teachers back in the late 60s, 70s, a lot of gurus. So Baba in India means father. So there were a number of Babas. His disciples called him Meher Baba, which means compassionate father. And the reason I continue following him because he doesn't really care if he has a following or not. He's not into gathering people around him for the way, but his message is love. Nothing more important than that, and that's the journey. And interesting thing, in the early 70s, it was finding out who one is was difficult. It was like moving through mud. But now the interesting thing is the doors are much more available for people who are searching to come to a deeper understanding of who they are. In fact,
do you think because there was a lot of turmoil going on in the 70s? I mean, I know there was war and it's a lot different from now, 2023.
And a lot of it has to do with the energy.
Yeah.
So the energy is more prevalent now for people who want to make a shift to, as I said earlier, to go within and understand on a deeper level who they are, which in essence is beyond the form.
Okay. And so with his teachings and other religions, sounds like you kind of trickle through a couple different religion and spiritual practices to kind of find your way. What other like trainings and things have you done to come to doing like the intuitive readings that you do now that helped you along the way?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to explore was hypnotherapy. And they call it transpersonal hypnotherapy, which allowed me to get in touch with my higher self. Sometimes people that I do readings for, they have a hard time meditating because the mind is such a trickster. The beauty of hypnotherapy, you can use the mind to go to deeper levels of understanding. So through there, I got to the higher self. From the higher self, I learned about spirit guides, met spirit guides, many different types of spirit guides. And
What is the higher self?
higher self is just as you may have heard of the inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Higher self is a part of us that we've taken from lifetime to lifetime, does not judge us, loves us, but doesn't give us the answers unless we ask.
Asking the questions.
Ask the question. So through the higher self, I met my guides, spirit guides.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's a funny story. Well, I don't know if it's funny, but when I was on this journey, I needed to know about the Native American traditions. So I went to the metaphysical stores in Seattle
Mm-hmm.
and asked, is there a shaman that I can connect with? And sure enough, there was a shaman who was white but respected by the natives. And he took me into the mountains, and I chopped the wood and got the rocks hot and so on and so forth. And after the sweat, a crow showed up. So I asked the crowd, I said, why don't you show up? He said, well, I'm here to turn your heart inside out, which was a 2-year journey.
Wow. And what does the crow symbolize?
Truth for me, truth, understanding how things work in the spirit world.
And and so you help guide people translate that to this world and help people understand that.
It's a journey. The most important thing is for people to know who they are. And there's 2 ways one can go. One can follow truth, which can lead to the heart, or one can follow the heart, which is intuition and feelings that can eventually lead to truth, move to truth. I feel it's important for people who are following truth to have an understanding of the structure and why things work. So as an example, if somebody shoots somebody, what happens to the person that shoots somebody? Well, eventually that individual is going to have to experience being shot to balance it out. So we're in a world of duality.
Right.
And the spirit world moves past duality.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, yes. My learning is told we go through evolution, the many stages of evolution to becoming human. And once we're human, we go through many lifetimes of reincarnation, being white, black, rich, poor, gay, straight, so on and so forth. Eventually, we go into what Mayor Baba has shared as going into involution, where we maintain the physical body, but we are beyond that form, but we use it as a vehicle to keep going on the journey.
Yeah, I've heard about the duality of, it's like you can't have up without down. Everything has to have an opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you work with people, I know you said you had the main thing you want them to realize is self-love. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. There's 3 things people want. Let me backstep. So when we're born, we choose our parents, first of all. And then whatever is projected by our parents or another adult, we subconsciously take it in. And then as we become a teenager to adult, we attract energy, situations that tell us we're not enough. So an example, my father was a young man. He loses my mother when about 30 years old. He has 2 children, and he could never reconcile his anger. So as I got to understand and have that intellect, he would always call me stupid. So being stupid, I excel in sports, could never become number 1, could never excel in work. In fact, in my last marriage, I had to go to a church and get bread and milk and food just to feed the family. So as a man, I was the biggest loser. Hated myself. But then something turned and I said, well, really a loser?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was, well, let's explore. So as I went deeper, I got to know who I was and now who I am. So because of my father as the teacher, it was because of him that propelled me to go within. And everyone has a story.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have to go through these things to move past who we think we are. So every time I'm with a client, for one thing, I always do the inner child. And if it's time, I'll bring up the family and why they chose it, what the learning is.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a process. So as I move forward, I learned that people want to be liked and or loved, accepted or affirmed. So what happens? People go outside of themselves for the reflection of who they are. If they're not liked, what happens? They may feel
disconnected from society.
Disconnected.
Yeah.
Or if they're not affirmed, look at me, or don't accept me. So they'll times, and especially in high school now, when you get teenagers, the need to be accepted.
You gotta add the hormones in, right. And the growth at that time that their body and their brain is developing is extra pressure just that they don't even realize.
But it's interesting. Sometimes I'll get a child that's empathic, and being an empath and feeling everything in high school with other teenagers and not knowing that they are, it creates havoc.
What is an empath?
So an empath, the difference between an empath and an intuitive goes with their gut. They feel this is a good situation for me or not a good situation, or I can trust them or not. An empath takes on the energy of what's projected upon them. They feel everything. And it's interesting, most people, or a number of people, I should say, that I meet and do readings for, they don't even know they're an empath.
Mm.
So I have to share with them and what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to being the child, I learned that we don't have to go through all the muckety-muck of our childhood to find out who we are. I learned on the journey to meet the child, and there's a way, and then I have the client ask the child first how old the child is, how old the adult is. We ask the child, what do you want for the adult? Well, I want she or him, he to be happy. Good. So then I tell the child not to worry, or have the adult tell the child not to worry. He's the adult, don't worry about me being happy. You can go play or rest. After that's done, then take the child or the higher self, if the child can answer, how do I do that? What do I need to let go of so I can be happy? I shared with you earlier that the easiest and most difficult way of knowing who one is to pay attention. And in psychology, we call it mindfulness.
Right.
Being aware of what you draw to yourself. So, and if it's the same or similar situations or in dreams at night, there's a lesson. So I had a woman come to me, she said, people keep telling me I'm loving. And I go, oh, that's nice. Why are they telling you that? She goes, well, I don't know. I said, because you don't believe it in yourself. So there's always something there, good or bad. So I have another person, they have guilt. And I said, okay, what's positive about holding on to guilt?
Sounds like nothing.
Right, nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yes.
but the positive side, so what's positive? Well, there's nothing positive. Oh, yes, there is. Keeps you safe. And it keeps that person safe because it's familiar. So if they drop the guilt, well, now there's a whole different energy shift. Well, who am I now? You know, interesting. I had one person say, well, I hold on to guilt so I don't do it again. Or, but what is guilt? Guilt says I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm bad. Well, as long as you're holding on to that energy, you're going to continue to attract situations that only fortify that you're not worthy of love.
And wow.
That's how it works. So there's several things.
How do you help people move through that?
Well, one is through the inner child.
Yeah.
Then, and through the higher self. What's the journey? What do I need to let go of? How do I become happy?
So it's probably different for each person. There's different exercises or practices or rituals or healings they can do.
Similar. Sometimes, yes, but it all comes down to you and I. We cannot grow spiritually if our inner child is fragmented from the whole.
And do you find that most people's inner child is fragmented? I think almost everybody, even if they don't have adverse childhood things that happen to them, have even one little thing can change the course of their path, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, I had somebody say, well, I got perfect parents. Well, I said, yeah. Well, then how come you're born? Why are you here? If you had perfect parents and you're fine, you wouldn't be taking a physical body. The only reason somebody is here is to learn. The earth is a place to learn who you are so you can go ahead and transcend limitations, move towards self-love, and have that journey towards the God within. Some people go, well, I don't like using God. Well, it's just a name. Call it whatever you want.
Exactly.
Call him Mickey Mouse. Doesn't matter.
So when you're doing a person's reading, how do you help them tune into that energy for the higher self?
Well, it's the process. So first thing I always do is look at somebody's eyes. So I get a sense of their disposition, you might say.
It's like your intuitive nature.
Yeah, you know, eyes always reflect. So I remember telling a story of on that journey, I picked up a Buddhist book, and then the book said, well, you know, walk down the street, look at people in the eye, and watch how many people turn away. I said, oh yeah, people turn away. Then it said, eyes are the mirror of the soul. So your eyes, that mischievous, and which is very beautiful because it's connected to innocence, it's connected to curiosity.
That's right. I'll go with that.
Yeah. Innocence has to do with wonderment. When we were children, we were innocent. So we were always curious about, oh, what's this about? What's that about? So, and sometimes, you know, I'm doing readings, and sometimes a past life will come up if it's important. But we've had all good lifetimes, bad lifetimes. It's like, doesn't matter. What's important now is now. Now, it's important. Our birthright is to be happy.
Now, you told me that most of the people that you do readings for, you said about 95% were women.
Yeah.
Can you speak to a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, rarely do I get a male, and if I do get a male, usually he's in his feminine energy. And I'm talking about lifestyle because we carry both masculine and feminine energies. So the feminine energy is connected to the heart. It's connected to intuition and feelings. The masculine energy is what we take in the world through action. It's the observer of the heart. So we're moving from a patriarchal time, which was dominant masculine energy, which created the wars and manipulation and control, to the feminine energy, which is love, feelings. So men are still holding on to the old way. They're still needing to be the protector, the provider, the controller, where women are moving towards those feelings. But it's interesting, women need to get in touch with their power. Instead of being the good little girl. Well, here I am. Here's my truth. And it's interesting, when I meet like that, many women who are secure with their power, they'll often will be asked to do something by a friend or a family member, and they'll say yes when they really don't want to do that.
Because you're just being nice.
Yeah. Right?
I just want to say, sure, I'll help you, yeah.
So I'll say, okay, be aware. Be aware of your truth. Be aware when you say yes when you don't really want to. And it doesn't mean that you have to act on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, oh, yeah, I saw Robert, and Robert said I need to be in my truth. No, yes. But first, before you can be in your truth, you need to be aware when you're not. And eventually the energy will transcend to a place where you will be that. You know, I use this metaphor for women that they be like a lioness.
Mm-hmm.
And she's on top of this mountain and she roars with the sheer joy of roaring and not caring who hears.
So she's transcending the energy.
Yeah, just,
yeah.
I am who I am.
Yeah.
So, it's beautiful.
So do you feel like we're coming into a more matriarchal time in society?
Oh, yeah. You know, I was told our planet's going to get worse. I mean, and I know it. You can look at everything that's happening. And it's interesting. I put this on Facebook and I said, it's really interesting that people are doing the same things as the world is falling apart. I said, well, what's going to happen when it hits them? Well, there's the worry. Well, how do you help with the worry? To know at least there's a positive aspect to all this happening. We have to go through this for the world to come to a place where there's harmony, a new humanity, sure, where there's love, there's intuition, there's compassion, all of that.
Yeah.
So the old way must go. And we've done so much harm to our planet, which, by the way, as you know, it's a living organism.
Yes.
So it's regurgitating everything that we've done. The other thing to help people is to know that life's a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, I tell people, look, you may not survive, but it'll make the transition easier, not earlier, maybe earlier, but it'll make it easier. That's the other thing. If people knew that there's no escape, sometimes in readings I'll tell people, what happens if somebody shoots somebody? Well, that person is going to have to be shot. Now they experience the duality of that. So life is duality, as we shared earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say somebody's bad. Well, when they die, they drop their physical body. They go to what we call the astral world. Mm-hmm. Then they have to experience all the harm they've done tenfold. And that pain is hard. They'll feel that pain. And then when they come back, they'll have a hard life.
Yeah.
That's karma.
I've heard like the life review and then coming back and learning the lessons in a different way.
So if people knew that, they wouldn't do it.
I would hope. Yeah. I would hope. That's why I like to bring people like you on to talk about this kind of stuff. I think people have forgotten or they are not paying attention because, they're very, like the world is very divided right now.
This may not be appropriate on here, but sometimes when I'm with a woman client, I said, sometimes you got to give the world a finger.
That's okay.
And in one ways, yeah, I come first, right? It's like, I don't care what you think of me. Here I am. You don't like me, too bad.
Yeah, healing is a process. It's not be perfect.
It's not easy. I mean, there's no magic wand. However, that being said, the people that I attract energetically they're ready to make a shift.
Do you have people come to you that are not ready? Rarely.
Yeah. And then I have to move through that if they want to know. I want to know about my job. Well, what about the job? Okay, why do you attract that situation in the job? what is their learning here? Then I have to help them to understand what the learning is. And I shared this with you earlier. I was in a mental health facility where I was handing medications out, and I just got this position. And at the time of getting that position, it was the first or second day, they had the higher-ups, the administrators, and they were going over the books because they were going to get audited. So, and I was handed the book to give medications out. And if you give a wrong medication, you're supposed to circle the med. So before I could do that, and I didn't give the wrong medication, but I wasn't able to circle that because they took the book away. So they were frantic upstairs, thinking I gave the wrong med to this client, to a resident. So they come down, and the boss at the time starts yelling. She says, "One thing I can't stand is somebody giving the wrong medication," and blah, 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 yelling in front of everyone.
Oh, it's not very trauma-informed. Yeah.
And at that moment, I realized that wasn't my job. We are not our job. We are not the parent. We are not the woman. We're not the man. We're more than all those things. We're spirit.
Yeah.
We're love. So once you get to that place, you know, when I started doing, Mayor Baba told me to do psychic fairs. And it was interesting at that time, the person had to get what I was sharing.
No, was that back in the 70s?
That was 80s.
80s, yeah.
80s, 90s, early 90s. So this was in Montana. So usually when we get closer to a person and we're communicating, it's like it's an important part of our body language, or the eyes, right?
Yeah.
Or how come he or she got more than me? I learned part of the journey was not important. And I'm getting to an aspect here. So one thing, eventually my guides left because they were teaching me to do it on my own, not go outside of myself and depending on the spirit guides for this, for communicating who they are and what's needing to be shifted energetically. So I find that the first part of life, we have to know we have goodness. That's important. That's like the foundation. You can't get to love unless you know you have goodness. Okay, then what happens after that? Once you have that, then you need to be detached from outcomes. So part of that journey was to be detached. And I say without indifference, meaning when I do readings for people, I'm not attached to what they get. They get what they get, they leave. And sometimes I'll have a client say, "Well, I don't want to hurt somebody," or "I'm concerned about my child." You have a beautiful heart. When you have your hearts there, you're never going to do harm.
Right.
It's there. Don't worry. That child chose you for their journey. And when you do it to the best of what you can do, that's all that's important. They'll move forward for whatever their lesson is. So even again, when a client tells me, "Well, my parents are loving," well, when you're a child and whatever you're learning is, you're going to pick up an energy. They tell you, "I love you," but you may hear it, "I hate you." You hear it differently. Or "You're not enough," or "Who do you think you are?" Whatever it is. There's always something to uncover on your journey.
What do you feel like is the most important thing that you want people to know? As far as like what you've experienced with your work in the healing field and what the world and shifts people are going through right now that people probably really need to hear.
Fair enough. And it's not dependent upon anything outside of who they are, and that they're loved. I know, going back to Mayor Baba, I know in the early days, I would go to my spirit guides before I go to him because I knew he was going to kick me. I I would get, oh, geez, not again. So I go to the spirit guy because they would kind of temper.
More gentle.
more gentle. But as I got to know, my goodness, moving to self-love, I know he loves me.
Yeah.
He just loves me. I know God loves me. I love God. I love him.
Yeah.
So that's the journey. The journey is your love. And when you love, I actually experienced it one whole day. I'm in love with nothing mattered. Everything flew beautifully.
Mm.
But it comes, it goes. Sometimes I'll experience it for moments.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful journey. And we're worth it.
Absolutely. Now, can you talk a little bit about the book that you brought? I don't.
Yes,
share that with the audience.
Look, the Discourses by Mary Baba. It talks about what God is. Who is God? What is God? How did it start? What is karma?
Mm-hmm.
Why are there wars? What's the different types of meditation?
Mm-hmm.
It's the ego. How do you get rid of the ego? And we carry from lifetime to lifetime all our imprints in our mind. So some of those imprints are carried over from lifetime to lifetime to be discarded. Or else.
And so I remember you were telling me that towards the last 44 years of his life.
Yeah, he was silent.
He was completely silent.
Yeah.
What is the...
He said there's enough words being said, so now I keep silent.
There's enough words being...
And his love is not by what you say, it's by what you do. And I shared that with you. There was a photo of him bowing down to a leper, touching the feet of a leper with his forehead. And he did that. Who would do that? He says, I bow to the God within them. These souls that are caged, so to speak. So who would do that? Except love.
Yeah. Is there a way to reach out to you? How do people reach out to you? And
well, they can call on my website, which is enlighteningwithsoul.com. My phone number is there. I have a blog, which also talks about spirit guides and self-love. Talks about the journey, my personal journey, and things that I pick up, some things that are shared to me through spirit, through Mary Baba, that I know that the world is going to get worse. So be prepared. I'd like to read one thing. And when I meet a client, I always give them the "Don't worry, be happy" card. But not, and I tell them, I don't care if you follow Mary Baba or not. But what's important is the back. And if I may read it just quickly. He says, to penetrate into the essence of all being and significance, and to release the fragrance of that inner attainment for the guidance and benefit of others by expressing in the world of forms truth, love, purity, and beauty. This is the sole gain which has any intrinsic absolute worth. All other happenings, incidents, and attainments can, in themselves, have no lasting importance. That's it.
Wow.
It's powerful.
It is it's very powerful, very simple almost, but we make it complicated, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And you also do readings at
New Renaissance Bookshop on Northwest 23rd.
Portland.
And I do readings at Home Spiritual Center in Salem. I do Zoom readings and workshops as well on self-love, emotional healing, and how one can actually meet their personal spirit guide.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So enlighteninwithsoul.com.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
That's it.
Robert, thank you.
It's great.
So
Thanks
much.
for having me.
Absolutely. I feel wonderful. I'm really glad you were able to give some good insight to people today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in today to the Panda Bear Magic Podcast, listening to Robert. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Panda Bear Magic Podcast. A small reminder, please reach out to a loved one because you never know what someone is going through. Many blessings.